Welcome to Daddy Issues. Conversations with Dads. A podcast from Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. Hey, welcome in everyone. Welcome to Daddy Issues. This is Jason Acquisto, along with my co-host Larry Smith, the president and CEO of Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis. And so today's guest is really special. Her name is Donna Marino, and Donna has over 40 years of professional experience, leadership, life coaching, spiritual direction, and family counseling. She is an LMFT and licensed marriage and family therapist here in Indianapolis. So we're so thrilled to have Donna.
Hey, Jason.
Hi, Donna.
How are you?
Good.
Hey, Larry.
How you doing, Donna?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you all for indulging me. I didn't realize initially I had to pick up my son tonight from voice lessons.
Yeah, well, you got to take time out of talking about being a parent on a podcast to actually be a parent.
Right.
No doubt.
Yeah. I'm intrigued with him taking voice lessons. Is it singing voice lessons?
So he does show choir. So he loves acting and singing, wants to continue that. He's a senior this year and wants to continue that next year.
Nice. Very nice. I'm sure he's got a lovely
Very
voice.
cool.
You sort of have a distinctive voice yourself.
Oh,
so I'm sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't sing it all, but but I appreciate
It's a big voice.
It's
Yeah.
a good voice. Larry, we met many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to introduce the two of you in my text and say, here's who each other. Then I thought, I think they know each other. And I realized that Donna knows a lot of people just through being in the community and being a good connector. Larry, the same way, particularly in the nonprofit space. And so we all have been in the same room probably a number of times,
Yes, indeed.
right?
It's I
And
describe it as a small, big city.
It is.
And I always say, be nice to everyone in Indianapolis because it comes around.
That's true.
It'll come back to you. And yeah, for sure. And in a good way, in the best way,
Yes.
it does come back. So we've all seen that in our professional lives.
Sure.
So we all have a mutual friend too, Joe Garrison, who was our last guest on the podcast. So Joe and I helped Donna with a focus group to really hone in on her brand because she is a therapist here in Indianapolis. Okay. And I will let her tell you a little bit more about that. Armonia is actually, there's some news for the last few weeks since we've been face to face. What is happening with your counseling practice?
So I'll do a quick intro and then also say what's happening. So Joe and Jason were instrumental in helping me define some strategic communications approach for my counseling practice, but ultimately also moving it into what's being developed as a wellness center. So I am a former corporate America person into community leadership turned life coach and counselor and marriage and family therapist. So what I realized in my transitions over the years, 25 years or so in corporate, and then a few years I'll count my chamber years in that time period, consulting and freelancing. What I realized in the continuity, the thread in all of that work was really about leadership. And that leadership was really about relationships and interpersonal approaches. And that in my role as leader, I was always curious about the people I worked with, for, and around. And so as I grew and matured, I'll call it my second and a half act, found myself in grad school in my 50s as my daughter was in college and my son was in high school, to take all those previous years of relational work into something deep and meaningful to help people and to really help guide them through life transitions, through struggles, through times of suffering and challenge. So that's the short story of my evolution. I've been in private practice going on 8 years.
Okay.
I worked for a company for a while and built my clientele, and I've been in private practice as a corporation for a few years, and moving into the purchase of a new property down in downtown Fishers. I found some property there, and that wellness center is going to be an integrated, holistic approach where multiple modalities come into the space. So it'll be I own the space, and there'll be other areas in the building where people can come in and work. Other therapists, other counselors, massage therapy, anything that really is in the healing arts. I describe it as the healing arts, and healing happens in a lot of different ways: meditation, talk therapy, art therapy, yoga. Holistic and somatic approach. So that's happening. I've got lots of cricks and creaks in my shoulders, just doing a lot of moving and renovating for the last few months, and inspection hopefully tomorrow. And I'll see my first client in there hopefully on January 6th. So,
Oh, wow.
Congratulations.
Moving quickly. Thank you. Yeah, very fun. Very exciting.
That makes me so happy to hear that update, because we had heard about this vision, Larry, months ago, last year. And I felt privileged to know what was on the horizon, but just to see it coming into fruition, that's so exciting, Donna. That's really happening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me
Great.
do that.
So Donna and I just shared so much of an approach to, Larry, as you have and I have gotten to know each other the past couple of years, we have come to realize, maybe appreciate, evolve into, what's most important, not just in the world. With Larry and I got to be friends through, years ago through pickup basketball. And then we kind of kept in touch, and through social media, we kind of kept finding ourselves in the same conversation, and held a lot of the same values during the turbulent 2020 era. We just said, there's something here. We ought to do something. So when he began with Fathers and Family Center, we said, let's make it a podcast. And so here it is. And it's really about the conversation with subject matter experts, folks who will have a perspective that's valuable. This is just really for us and any dads who can benefit from it. The questions I have planned are loose. They're like, why is parenting so hard? But to do it with a wink, to be like, come on, this is something we're all doing our best with, right? But I will tell you, we need to start with our customary dad jokes. And Larry, we will circle around and hear kind of what's new at Fathers and Family Center. There's always something happening. I see a lot of updates on LinkedIn. A lot of things have been happening with grants and things. So put a pin in that. But I want to tell you now, I don't know if you noticed, I'm growing a little beard. At first I didn't like it, but hey, it's growing on me.
Boom. Did you do the Movember thing, and that's how it started to come in?
Yeah, actually, it was just on vacation, and I just thought I'd keep it. So there's dad joke number one. If you've got one ready,
I do. What happened to the parked frog? It got towed.
Oh. The park.
Okay, that's good. I love that one. It's so simple.
That's good. Darn, I wish I knew. I'm a terrible joke taker.
No, these are dad jokes. You wouldn't even. I'm surprised you even understand. They're just for dad. So I was telling Donna, I had the good fortune. My family just took a vacation to Hawaii right before Christmas, and it was a trip of a lifetime. It was wonderful. I learned so much though when I was there. Did you know that it's against the law to laugh out loud in Hawaii? To laugh loud, you can't, because they only allow aloha.
Oh, you got to be on that one. You got to be on. I'm thinking, boy, some strict laws down there.
Okay, there you go. Donna, we work so hard on these jokes.
Every once in a while I hear one, I'm like, I think I can tell that one. I think I can remember that. And then invariably I'll try to tell it and I'll screw it up. So
it's all right.
I'll just enjoy the laughter in the moment. Thanks
for getting together, you guys. I treasure bringing people into this conversation, because there's nothing more important and, nothing more meaningful, nothing more rewarding, but nothing harder than being a parent. And there are unique challenges to being a mother and to being a father. This podcast is about being a father. So what are some things as a therapist, as someone who counsels families and not just family, but that's among the things. And plus you are a parent, and, what is it that makes it so hard? And talk a little bit about some things that you've seen families go through, just real generally, what is it that is the missing piece, or what's the holy grail that we all need?
That's a big question.
No pressure.
I think I'll start from a high level in terms of my experience of working with men as a therapist, and parallel it to my experience as a mother of a son, a daughter to a father, a sister to brothers. So high level, something that I've really learned, and this has really happened even before being a therapist, when I was doing some life coaching work, and I would be brought into organizations, and I would be asked by leadership to sit with, Tom or Joe or Bill, and try to work with them because they were struggling in the workplace. And I would sit with them just fully present with an open heart and an open mind and open ears. And invariably what I would find out from any of those men in front of me, who I hardly knew, is that typically there was something underlying in their life that was troubling them and they were struggling with, and they didn't feel free to be vulnerable or authentic about what was happening in their personal life that was affecting them in the workplace. And I remember sitting with many men in the first or second or third time meeting who would be in tears about some really big struggle in their life, struggle in their marital relationship or health situation or an addiction situation. And I remember being so taken aback, certainly from just even from the feeling of being honored that they felt safe in my presence with that vulnerability, but also taken aback with this insight of like, our men are really struggling at times in life. And this notion of being vulnerable and being that open and authentic is frowned upon often in our society. And what I realized when I started to connect the dots as I moved into the therapy space is I started to think about my own son, my brothers, my father, and now the clients that were in front of me coming in as sometimes individuals or sometimes as coming in as a couple, and how many of the nuances are connected to the intricacies of how complicated life can get in the hustle and bustle of just the everyday, but also the complications of, needing to be the man and being strong and having it all together when really inside they were struggling. Mm-hmm. And so I think the one thread that I've noticed is that if we can offer open space to our boys who grow into men, starting at the youngest age, we free them at some level to allow what's true for them emotionally and spiritually and vulnerably to come forth. I think that's a big gap and a big challenge in our society in general, but it also gets nuanced when we start to look at ethnicity and family backgrounds and cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It made me think about one of my favorite quotes from Frederick Douglass, who said, "It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men." And so, this is a couple hundred years ago, almost, he was saying that. And so definitely. And even at Fathers and Family Center, our mission statement is to equip fathers and empower families so that children thrive. So ultimately, we're trying to affect the lives of children. We do that by hopefully affecting the lives of fathers.
So, ask the Holy Grail, or starting young. And I think, it really fits very closely, Larry, with what you're saying the mission is.
You're listening to Daddy Issues. We'll be right back after a short break.
Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app, bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecasts, radar, and Indiana sports, all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
And now, back to daddy issues.
Are we doing better this generation than the previous in terms of, are we allowing and welcoming that vulnerability better than we used to?
I want to say yes, but I don't think I really can say yes. I think we're doing better in being more aware of the nuances and why it's important to be more conscientious, but I'm not sure we're doing it effectively.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean,
Yeah, maybe more conscientious in certain circles of not ruling with an iron fist and not, being disciplinarians as parents. But
yeah,
my experience is something is still amiss with our boys to men, still finding that space where all of a sudden they're vulnerable and then one day they're not anymore.
but isn't it a balance? Isn't it a challenge to have that balance between iron fist and pushover? Because you can overcorrect and you can be like Larry and just, they run roughshod over you, man. You have no. Well, but being a father of a daughter is a different challenge as well. So Larry and I have, I'm a father of an only, and he's 21. Larry has an older adult daughter from being a young father. And then he has two that are current teenagers.
Oh,
How old's your
19,
oldest?
yeah, so she's a sophomore in college.
She's still a teenager.
Yeah, and then my son
Yeah.
is 17.
Being a father of girls is different. And also that tendency to be like, well, I'm either going to be, it's my way or the highway, iron fist, or I want to do better than my father. And we've talked about this too. It's always our goal to do better. Does that mean you kind of overcorrect? But what are some of the ways that you've seen in your experiences with families? How have you seen men grow as fathers? And some examples maybe of, like you said, allowing vulnerability. What are some other ways that they've been able to improve themselves?
So, two things come to mind, Jason, from that question. One is I work with a lot of couples where they're blended family situations. So, divorced and remarried, and they come together as a new family, and there's usually some kind of parenting or shared custody situation. And in some instances, depending on what one or the other's divorce situation was like, in some instances, there's some parental alienation that might be happening on one side or the other.
Yeah.
And what's really sad, but also promising, is that in the case of fathers, sometimes fathers hear anecdotally what they believe their rights are. And if they don't get good representation, they may lose some of their true parental rights in terms of parenting time, or they may struggle financially based on some agreement in the divorce. But what I have found is that when men come in, especially if they're part of a new couple, a new family, blended family, and they begin to talk about their struggles with maybe some alienation that's happening or their parenting time that has not really been fairly balanced, that when they become educated on what's possible for them and they go back and really try to make amendments to agreements, they are so committed. They are so committed to building relationships with their children that even in the face of stronger adversity, right? They're already in an adverse situation in that they've been through divorce and now they're in a new family. But in the face of that stronger adversity, they don't back down. And it just gives me great hope and great promise that even when dads maybe aren't being treated kindly by their own children because they've been influenced by another parent, they're committed to staying the path and being a strong dad, even when it's hurting them. And so that gives me hope, because back in the day, I came from a divorced family, and I was lucky to see my dad on Sundays from 12 to 5. And it would break my heart, especially if mom had a bad week and she wasn't too happy with my dad that particular week for whatever reason. She might withhold us. So coming from that in the 60s and 70s to where we are today, where dads will fight to make sure they can stay in their children's lives and they will plow through the adversity. it gives me great hope that dads are committed in a way that maybe they didn't have an opportunity to be committed before.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, I'm a child of divorce as well, and then unfortunately got divorced, myself. But as Jason alluded to, I was a young dad. I was a dad shortly before I turned 17. I became a father, and ended up having a lot of issues and challenges with my daughter's mother, but ultimately fought for and won custody of her. And so that was something that was truly important to me as a father. I didn't think that she was in the healthiest situation, in particular with her stepfather. And so ultimately I was awarded custody when she was 13.
And that was no easy feat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really honorable and admirable, Larry, that, as a young man, you fought the hard fight to be that dad, and more importantly, to make sure your daughter was in a safe and better situation. And
He's done okay. He's done okay. And that's a really great take that you just gave. That I love that you found that encouraging, that little piece of wisdom that you're like, I'm so glad to see. What you do is you look with optimism to see what you can be happy about and build on that. But you still have the truth and the reality of life. That's why I value your perspective so much. You're an optimist, but not naive.
So, my work is about creating hope, never losing hope. In the suffering and in the struggles, sometimes we start to feel more hopeless. And so the work is, each time that I meet with a client, each session is to just try to create more hope for that person. So I tell these dads that are struggling in the blended family situations, just stay the path. Decide the man and the father you want to be. And no matter how hard it gets, stay on that path and just keep going. And,
that is
one step
simple
at a time.
and perfect and beautiful. So Larry, what's on your mind? What's going on in your household now with your challenges?
Yeah. So, my son is really freaking out, I think it's fair to say, over college admissions, right? I mean, it's that time of year. And so his mom and I are really just trying to calm him down and let him know that, he's going to get into a great school. He's going to have a wonderful experience. Part of the issue is he's inherited our genes, though. We're both, sort of overachievers, if you will, and extremely competitive. And although he has far exceeded us, I mean, at worst, he will be salutatorian, maybe valedictorian, at worst salutatorian. He's got like a 5.1, 5.2 GPA. He's class president. And all his classes are honors, International Baccalaureate or AP, and he's in show choir. And so our job now is really trying to pull him back and calm him down and say, hey, son, you're gonna do very, very well. But it's that on the one hand, we are very grateful that he's a self-starter and has all this drive, but at the same time, we want to make sure that he just keeps cool and is confident in the preparation that he has done all on his own. And so we're really focusing on that right now. I cannot wait till March or April get here so we can be done with that process, although he is much more than we. And then, my middle daughter is back home from college now. She's a sophomore at Howard University, so she's back home from DC and is doing great. Had a tough first year. You're making that adjustment from high school to college, but now straight A's and communications major. Sings in the gospel choir. She also wants to pursue a career. So my son wants to study drama and become an actor. My daughter is very much involved in singing. Her aunt, my ex-wife's sister, sings professionally and invited my daughter Vivian to sing on her previous album. And so she's really excited about that. And then my eldest is doing very, very well. She and her husband celebrated 10 years of marriage in August. They met in college at Tennessee State University down in Nashville and have been together ever since. 4-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter who just, rule my world. Being a grandparent, very, very different than being a parent. You let them do whatever they want to do, spoil them, and then send them back home to their mom and dad. And so I'm enjoying that. So yeah, so I not a whole lot to complain about. Life is good, hectic, crazy. Still on 6 boards. I'm writing a weekly column for the Indianapolis Recorder. I'm legal guardian for my middle brother who has some developmental challenges, and so I just a lot of balls in the air, and just trying to make sure that they don't all come crashing down.
But you look good.
Thank you. Looking to be the double nickel in March of next year. So
Double
that's
nickel.
good. Yeah, it's a great age. Donna, one thing I like to throw out too, again, these questions are not loaded. This is just a chat. We just value the perspective of the 3 of us with different age kids. Your kids are, how old are your kids again?
My daughter is 26 and my son is 23.
What is it as a parent and as a professional with insight into counseling? What is it that we don't know about our kids that they would maybe wish that we knew?
So, Larry, before you came on, Jason and I were talking briefly about his trip to Hawaii that he got to take with his wife and son, celebrating anniversary and graduation. And his son turned 21. And I was saying that mine is 23, my son is 23. And we just started to briefly touch on how different parenting is when they get to 21 and 23. And so I, with the 23 and 26-year-old, to your question is, what is it do I think that might be happening within our kids that we don't know about? And where I started to go was this transition of parenting an adolescent into late adolescence into young adulthood is one type of transition. Larry, you're describing it wonderfully as you're talking about your son. You're really preparing them to take that step out into the world, first for college. But then when they launch, you have one that's officially launched, your oldest, and I've got 2 now that are launched. So this is where I think that nuance is for me, Jason, is when they officially launch, they are free and independent and fully adulting on their own. And yet their brain development isn't finished until they're 26. So I think that the challenging part is how to trust that we've given them all that we can possibly give them to navigate the world with good judgment, good critical thinking skills, good problem solving skills, and a sense of confidence, but to also know when to raise the flag when they need help. Because they don't have it all figured out at 21 and 23. And they're barely just figuring it out at 26. So to give them just enough rope and lead, but with an open heart and an open door to always come back.
Even if they won't.
Even if they won't.
They might not.
Yeah, that's, the frustrating thing. I talk about this with my ex-wife, with our 2, teens. You always say as a parent, well, you want to raise them to be independent and self-reliant and all that, but certainly, the door's always open to help. Well, they won't walk through it. They won't knock on it. Then fortunately, neither of them has ever been in, any serious trouble or anything of that nature. But we actually really do wish that they would come to seek at least our perspective more when they're going through different challenges. And so, it's kind of glad that you're self-sufficient, but you'll always be our babies, right? No matter how old you get.
Yeah, for sure. Like, they all of us don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And at 21 and 23 and 25, we really don't know what we don't know, but we think we do. And there's this, and it's a very natural developmental process where it's called differentiation or individuation, where it really starts in adolescence, where, sometimes it even starts as early as toddlerhood, when you see a toddler saying, no, I can do it myself. I can do it myself. But this sense of differentiating from your family of origin and individuating from your parents, it's a natural developmental process that needs to happen. And so being able to allow them the space that they need and finding their way while trying to remain open and letting them know that we're still there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've had my son say, you've given me everything I need. Now let me go be and do what I need to do. And I'll always be your little boy.
Yeah.
Wow, you won a prize on that one. That's great to have him aware enough that that's what is currently happening.
You're listening to Daddy Issues. We'll be right back after a short break. And now, back to Daddy Issues.
I find that sometimes I want to say, you do know this. There's a lot of things that you don't know that you don't know, but there are a lot of things you don't know that you do know that. You follow me? So just think about it. You do know this, right? So it's just coaching. It's just trying to pull it out of them. Larry, do you remember, and both of you, but I mean, I was thinking about this recently as a father to a son. Oh man, I flash back every Christmas. We put up all of his old Santa pictures on one part of the mantle, and there's all of his old Santa sitting on Santa's lap, whatever your tradition is through the years of the little boy and the little boy PJs Christmas morning. And then he got a little older. Then he was a teenager and too cool. And now he's a man and he has a beard and he's looking at, so like those transitions from little kid Christmas to middle teen Christmas to now enjoying your own child as they are a young adult. Isn't that a wonderful feeling?
Yeah. It's, honestly, it's kind of bittersweet to me because I miss the little ones, running and jumping and playing and being happy and all that. And it's at the same time, they're only loaned to us, right? They are growing and becoming their own people. And I, love that. I love the adults, the young adults and the little bit older adult that my kids are becoming, but definitely miss, lap time, and all that. When you're pulling your hair out and you don't know how you're going to make it another day with two, kids that are under 5, for example, because, now 17 and 19. And so, they were pretty close in age. And even with my older one, at 37, I still remember, those days like they were yesterday. So yeah, it's getting accustomed to those transitions and embracing all of it. Is important.
Yeah, no doubt. And it is wonderful, Jason, and it is also bittersweet. And so, as you were describing, I'm envisioning your little boy in each of those different stages, right? I'm feeling within myself, but also recognizing again, just this natural stage of growing is there's like a sense of grief, a grief for what is no longer, and yet an excitement about what is and what is still to come, like watching them become their own people and living into these incredible gifts that God has given them and being guided by their own inner wisdom. It's like, it's exhilarating and powerful. And they are just loaned to us, right? So, we can't really take credit for it because, they're ultimately doing all of it. But there's this balance of, possibility and optimism and excitement and, oh, I'm a little sad that stage is over. Right. That's just the truth for me. And I know from a lot of parents, it's a strong truth, holding space for both grief and excitement.
And that's where we live, in that emotional tension. Then there's those moments that happen where your breath is taken away by that moment of adulthood that we're seeing more and more of those. And you both have felt this before, that a whole new person is emerging. So it's those golden moments that makes it just the best job. So this is Daddy Issues. It's about conversations with dads and with folks that we care about and value opinions. Donna Marino, tell us again about how we can get in touch with you if someone wanted to learn more about what you do, Donna, and how they might be interested in utilizing you for your expertise.
A few different ways that they can reach out to me. They can just Google me, LMFT, Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist, with my name, Donna Marino, Indiana or Fishers, and it'll pop up. Armonia Counseling, ARMONIA. Armonia is the Italian word for harmony. It also is the Spanish word for harmony. I picked it for the Italian word.
Well,
I'm Italian and Spanish, so I guess it goes with both.
forget
But
about
it's
it.
forget about it. Don't get me talking my New York. I'll turn the
Don't get me talking my.
my Brooklyn will come
Yeah,
out. But they
yeah.
can Google Armonia Counseling or Armonia Life Design, and the contact information will come out. Email Donna at armonia-counseling.com.
Awesome.
Those.
So your expertise is really in that one-on-one personal connection. Do you have any specifics that you'd like to let people know about in terms of family practice? Or I know that you talk with and counsel and help families, couples.
Yeah, so as a licensed marriage and family therapist, there's different genres of mental health counseling support. Mental health counseling, licensed clinical social worker. Personally, I opted to go the marriage and family therapy route. All of them have integrated approaches, but my personal philosophy is that the moment we're really conceived, but especially the moment we're born, we are immediately part of a family system. And we operate in the systemic world. And so marriage and family therapists simply look at the person in context to the system. And that system being the family system that they came from and whatever their cultural and ethnic backgrounds are. And even, professional, educational, all of the systems that they're a part of. And so that's the nuance of the work that I do. I work with individuals, I work with couples, I work with families. I've had upwards of 5 people in the room at times. I work mostly with adults, 25 and up, and I've often had mothers and daughters in the room when daughters are in their 30s or 40s and moms are in their 50s or 60s. I've had them in the room. I've had some fathers and sons in the room, and certainly plenty of couples. So the whole picture right now, I don't do any group work, but I am certainly looking at how to create some context and curriculum to be able to support. I would love, love, love to work with fathers and sons. Larry, I do retreats also, and
Okay.
I've had retreats for women and I've done retreats for couples. And I've talked to some of my male clients about why don't men come on retreats?
What's the answer to
The
that?
answer is we're fine to have this conversation in here one-on-one, but being out there in the group and showing that vulnerability. So my mind says, well, maybe fathers and sons would be the answer.
Yeah, probably
Right.
so. And even with our organization, I think what helps us to be successful is that we get it's all men, right? So they come together, and it's men who have similar backgrounds, and so they allow themselves to feel vulnerable. It doesn't always happen on day one. So our flagship program is called Strong Fathers. It's 3 weeks long, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., 90 hours of instruction, and the average age is between 33 and 35. The average income is about $11,000 a year. We have one cohort per month of about 35 men. Although we had like 41 lists last time, but in any given cohort, 40 to 70% of the men are returning citizens. They've either been in jail or prison at some point in their lives, and they've had a lot of difficulty, a lot of trauma growing up, and so you get them in there with other men who have had similar experiences, and they really open up. Otherwise, they would not. And so I'm not surprised that is your experience with the men you work with.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is really important, the common experiences, right? Because there's a trust of like, okay, like he gets me because he's been through some hard stuff too. One of the areas, actually there's several areas that we look at relationally and systemically, and that each of us developmentally go through is something called attachment. Like what happens in our bonding when we're infants to children, to toddlerhood, to intermediate age. And attachment styles really affect how safe we feel in the world and how secure or insecure we feel about how we can trust the world. And depending on how that all manifests, it shows up in our behaviors, either anxiously or avoidantly. Another is the emotional part of us that is connected to our attachment styles.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes I'll work with those concepts in understanding, Larry, what you're describing with those lower socioeconomic income levels and then having trauma on top of it is the ability to get in and understand what happened, what happened to them that created likely some kind of developmental issues around attachment where they don't trust the adults in their life. They don't trust people around them. They don't trust the world. Something traumatic may have happened on top of it. Because if we can start to connect the dots as to what happened and how it affected how they feel about themselves, and the light bulbs can go off and insight can develop, they might recognize problem's the problem, they're not the problem.
Right.
Say that again.
The problem is the problem.
Not them.
They're not the problem.
Yeah.
Something likely went awry early in their life.
You're listening to Daddy Issues. We'll be right back after a short break. And now, back to Daddy Issues.
We really appreciate the chance, I think, as we grow older, Larry and I, the chance to see maybe some things that were present in our own father's lives. As I'm in my 50s, I think that's what he was going through. And also it was during a less enlightened time. And so that's some of the trauma that I might have lived through that he had less tools for. I'm projecting this onto you, Larry. This is the way I feel. Can you relate?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, my parents were divorced when I was maybe 4 or 5. My father was in the Army, had an honorable discharge, but substance abuse issues and all that, and just wasn't present in my life. And there's a Chinese proverb that says, "I have no friends, I have no enemies, I only have teachers." Right, and so my father taught me how to be a good father by frankly doing the opposite. And I say that. I always like to add that it is not my goal to disparage him. He was battling his own demons, and he certainly had them. But at the same time, I was a kid. I mean, I didn't know, and if I had known, it wouldn't have mattered to me, I'm sure. And so, I tell my kids all the time, I tease them, talk about when they write their books about how their dad run their lives. They'll be able to say a lot of things, but they will not be able to say that I wasn't there. Right? In fact, they'll have to say he was there too. I wish he would go away. Not that he wasn't there. And so because that's, I'm always trying, in some ways, I'm sure, and this is, your bailiwick, Donna, but I'm trying to fill that void that doesn't even exist in their lives. But I'm just always so conscious that my father just wasn't there, and I always want to make sure that I am present for them.
Doing better than he did.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a healthy way to approach it?
Well, it's we all want to do better than the previous generation if we're conscientious. And I think what I'm struck by, Larry, with you is the other thing we don't know is why someone that has a background like yours, where your dad wasn't there and had some of his own demons and struggles, someone like you turns out to be the way you did, and someone else turns out to be one of the guys in your group, who maybe was incarcerated. So this notion of resilience is like what creates resilience in younger children as they grow into adulthood, where they do take a particular path of more constructive, healthy path versus a more destructive, self-destructive path. So we don't know what happens, and that's part of it is the nature part, right? There's nature and nurture. And so for whatever reason, Larry, short of having a child at a young age, you got yourself on a really pretty good path, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's an issue of faith, but for the grace of God, that would be me. When I look at these men come through our door, that's what I think, that I really should be one of these men. And so now I'm able to help them. And I certainly don't want to state what I do, because 70% of my job, I'm outside of the office, raising money and trying to build partnerships and raise awareness of the organization. So the people who are doing the real work are in the classroom and so on, and supportive services. But I still get to meet and interact with the men and always let them know, I grew up at 34th Emerson, for the most part, in the inner city and all that, and first generation college student and all that. And so it gives them something to aspire to. And it's not uncommon for them to say, well, I want to be like you. And my response is always, no, be better than I am. Right? Be better than I am.
And have an aspirational vision
Absolutely.
for themselves. And I think, I talked about faith, and I do think there's a factor that maybe guides some of us in just believing that we're meant for good things, and really growing into becoming servant leaders in our community and showing up in love, agape love.
Absolutely.
And from a place of service.
Yeah. And that is something that really drew Larry and I together during that time of 2020 pandemic and unrest, particularly that part about we can continue to fuel that divide, or we can come together and fight the good fight of love. And we look at, not to put a timestamp on this podcast episode, but we look at the life of former President Carter, who passed away. And that servant leader example, what a shining beacon of goodness this man was. And he wouldn't even accept that praise. That's how humble he was. I'm just doing my job, trying to be a good person,
And he had that little Southern accent.
Yeah.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of stories about him, and one in particular, he talks about the importance of his mother, and he said that she had a way. His phrase was taking the wind out of people's sails, and so on the night that he won the election to be president. A reporter asked his mother, "Well, so what do you think about your son?" And you know what her response was? Which one?
Because there was Billy. Don't forget Billy.
Right,
and you know what? She loved him just as much.
Absolutely. Isn't that the perfect response? Which one? She loved her son. It wasn't just about, this man's just been elected president of the United States, right? I mean, so, so that he obviously got his humility, honestly.
Truly from her. Yeah.
So Larry, what's news as far as Fathers and Family Center? What's ahead in the new year?
Growing. We literally and figuratively, we've outgrown our building. We're at 2835 North Illinois. And when I arrived in August of 22, we had about 5 to 7 men per cohort needs strong fathers. Now it's, like I said, it's 35 or plus. And so we probably will be moving not too far away, but hopefully we're going to be signing a new lease here. We own our building, so hopefully we're going to be able to sell that. If not, we'll try to rent it out or whatever. But that's the big news. You mentioned the grants, for which we're very grateful. Although I just hired our first development director, who's going to focus on individual giving, because you can't take those grants for granted that they're always going to come. Right. So we're going to be focusing a lot more on individual donors in the coming year, and then also developing some new programming. So the idea is, rather than always having the men come to us, we want to develop programming that we can take to large nonprofits, large corporations, and have maybe, a couple hundred people in the cohort for over 2 or 3 days, as opposed to 3 weeks. And so, but we're doing so much, and we've really been blessed.
That's terrific, man. Thank you for that work, because that is you talk about doing the good work that is hard, that is often thankless, but that comes up later and just turns up. It comes back in spades, right? It comes back in keep on casting your bread upon the water, is that old scripture, right? It will come back to you on every wave. So Donna, thank you for spending some of your Monday night here between Christmas and New Year's talking about parenting and fathering. And here's the last question on the spot. What's one simple thing we can do to be better fathers?
So I'll say, listen with your full presence, but listen to hear. Don't just listen to the words.
Yeah. That's something I think about a lot in my professional life, that I'm not just waiting till it's my turn to talk.
Listen
Listen,
to
like you
hear.
just
And listen to
active
hear
listening.
Absolutely.
behind the words.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know you only asked for one thing, but I'm going to give you one more.
But please, bonus.
Yeah.
Be affectionate
Hmm.
with your words and your physical affection. I think our sons need hugs.
Mm-hmm.
Our boys need hugs. Our men need hugs
Mhm.
just as much as our little girls do.
And affectionate with your words.
And affection with your words.
You said that's a really great way to put
I
it.
love that.
Yeah, affectionate just isn't just physical affection.
Really appreciate getting together. It's great to
So
see.
fun.
Great to see your
Thank
face.
you.
Larry, I don't know what your plans are for New Year's, but I hope it's a wonderful
Football
celebration.
and rest.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Year
I
to
hope
you.
the celebration is fun for you.
Thank you.
And
I'm so grateful to be invited and
Indeed.
be a part of the conversation today. So
Yeah.
thank you. I wish you guys a great, blessed, happy New Year. Larry,
Thank you.
keep doing the great work. You're
Yeah, and I
doing
would
good things
love to
out there.
catch up with you as well when you have some time.
For sure. I would like that.
Thanks for listening to Daddy Issues, a podcast from Fathers and Family Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. Be sure to follow us and stay connected on Instagram and Facebook. For more information about the programs of Fathers and Family Center, visit ffcindiana.org.